Hi there, this is Danny Flexen for SecondsOut with the latest edition of Flex Spectations. We're here every Thursday, 4:30 p.m. to look ahead to the boxing action of the weekend. And as you can probably tell from the backdrop, I'm here at the final press conference for Daniel Jacobs against John Ryder. A huge super middleweight fight with real world title implications. It's a WBA eliminator, but more than that, it could create in the winner one of the few viable options left at 168 pounds for Canelo, who's the sport's cash cow and who a lot of people are queuing up to fight, unsurprisingly. Didn't see much from the press conference that gave away what's going to happen on Saturday night at Alexandra Palace. Both seemed as composed and determined as you would imagine from people who've been in the sport for as long as they have. John Ryder, of course, has had a bit of an up and down career, lost fights he probably should have won, and then performed better than we expected in his biggest fight so far against Callum Smith, where many people felt he was unfortunate not to get the decision in his previous world title attempt. I had him winning by a point, I remember, when I first watched the fight. I don't think I've watched it back since, but he did seem to just about pull it out, gave Callum Smith all world of problems, and this is someone who then went on to do decent enough against Canelo with one arm disabled from the early rounds. So Ryder's coming in, he's had a few stoppage wins since moving up to 168 pounds. He looks a big puncher, physically very strong, not the tallest, of course, but comes into this fight with Jacobs in probably the form of his life over the last couple of years. Jacobs, on the other hand, struggled quite a lot in his last fight with Gabe Rosado. I think that was his second fight at 168. Previous to that, he beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., but as we've seen in recent times, that doesn't always mean as much as perhaps it would have, say, 5 years ago. Struggled against Rosado, couldn't quite get things going that night. Lack of atmosphere may have been a factor in that. He certainly seems to be well up for this one. Doesn't struggle with the weight as he did at 160 pounds, a weight at which, though, he was incredibly effective. Beat Sergei Derevyanchenko, did a really good job there. Pushed Golovkin very hard in that fight and gave Canelo a good tussle as well. He hasn't quite shown that form up at 168 yet, maybe a few glimpses. But if he's anything less than his best, this won't be a difficult fight for John Ryder because he will come to bring it as he always does. John Ryder's very, very awkward as a southpaw. I know we always say southpaws are awkward, but he's not one of those kind of slippery, awkward, typical southpaws. He's in your face, he's powerful, he's strong, he can wrestle you in the clinches, but he's clever too. He can find gaps for his body shots and his uppercuts inside. He knows all the little tricks of the trade that have been honed over many years now with Tony Sims in the Matchroom Elite Gym. And they're fighting for getting closer to a world title shot, perhaps a vacant belt if Canelo decides to give up the titles, depending on what his next move is. But also, as I said earlier, to get themselves into position to fight someone like Canelo. It might seem a bit fanciful, as Sims said yesterday, that Canelo could be attracted over to the UK if Ryder wins this fight. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Canelo will eventually run out of viable opposition. Ryder may, by that point, have a world title belt already in the trophy cabinet. Would you keep a belt in a cabinet? I'm not sure. I've seen people do it. But anyway, Daniel Jacobs, he'll want another crack at Canelo, this time without the rigours of having to make weight. He feels that he can give a better account of himself. And that could be sold as a kind of rejuvenated, bigger, stronger Danny Jacobs going up to avenge one of his 3 defeats on his record, one which will never be avenged because Dmitry Pirog, the first man to defeat the Miracle Man, unfortunately retired with a back injury. But Jacobs will go into this knowing it might not be make or break. One thing I did think was interesting up at the press conference was that Ryder had said previously that whoever loses this fight, it might be time for them to retire. And that was brought up to Jacobs, who said, well, no, he's only speaking for himself. I'm not retiring. I'm going on regardless. Instead of what I thought he would say, which would be, I'm not going to lose, so it's irrelevant. He seemed to allow, even if it was just because he was caught off guard, the possibility of a loss. And I don't know how much that tells us about their relative mindsets. But for Ryder, this really is make or break. This is a chance for him to make a real better life for his young family. And we hope, from his perspective, that he's done everything he can in training camp. I've got no reason to believe he hasn't. And he'll give it absolutely his all on Saturday night. It is in Alexandra Palace. He's got home advantage. I think Danny Jacobs is his UK debut. As much as he's looking forward to it, I think he'll certainly not be the crowd favourite. I think he'll be booed. I think Ryder will be cheered to the rafters. Don't know how much impact that will have. But they're both promoted by Matchroom, so you would expect a fair crack at it. Although, you could say the same for Callum Smith against Ryder, and Ryder doesn't feel he was given the benefit of the doubt on the judges' scorecards that night. But yeah, if I had to pick a winner, and I suppose I don't have to, but I'm going to because it's Flexpectations, you expect a certain level of integrity. I would go for Ryder to edge it out on the scorecards. Danny Jacobs incredibly robust. I don't think he's going to get him out of there, but I think Ryder will outwork him, outmuscle him to an extent. And I think it will be close, but I think this time he'll get it on the scorecards and then go on to a potentially bright future. I just think he needs it a little bit more. I don't know if he wants it a little bit more, but he needs it a little bit more, and that could be the deciding factor. Now, I want to know what you guys think. Who's going to win and how? Let us know. Who are you looking forward to seeing on an undercard that includes Johnny Fisher, Ellie Scottney, Felix Cash, of course. Let us know what you think, and I'll respond to some of the comments. I'll be back on Monday to look back on the card in Reflections, 4:30 p.m, and I'll be back at the same time next week, Thursday, for the next Flexpectations, which will look ahead to a super fight, albeit a bit late, between Amir Khan and Kell Brook. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.